Hello, everyone, and welcome to webinar number 9 in our Responsible Hillside Living series. I'm Robert Thompson, principal here at Aki Workshop, and today we're departing a little bit from Hillside Talk to talk about placemaking. And we have with us today Mrs. Heather Pinnock, who's gonna share her knowledge of placemaking with us and take some questions. All right, so to introduce Heather, Heather Pinnock is a Jamaican placemaker and champion of sustainable tropical living. She is a development professional with formal training in architecture, urban design, and project management, as well as over 23 years of experience in construction and real estate. She's a graduate of Bartlett Development Planning Unit at the University College London and the Caribbean School of and she attended the Caribbean School of Architecture, University of Technology, Jamaica. Heather has worked across Jamaica as well as in St. Lucia and Trinidad and Tobago. Her experience includes master planning, energy efficient and net zero buildings, sustainable housing and public spaces, and so on. In 2021, she concluded a successful stint leading one of the government of Jamaica's largest real estate management and development agencies, the Urban Development Corporation, where she actively promoted making development happen sustainably. Heather was appointed co-chair of the Commonwealth Women in Planning Network in June 2022. She's also a certified Scrum Master, an EarthCheck Design accredited professional, and a licensed real estate salesperson. Her company, Lucy Caribbean, offers real estate advisory services with a focus on sustainable development and conscious living for the tropical region. So you could see why Heather and Aki Workshop work, because we're all about that. Heather, thank you so much for joining us and welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for that in-depth introduction.
Well, you know, necessary. So, placemaking. What is placemaking and why is it important?
Well, are you going to share my few pictures?
Definitely. So
Please do.
Let me open that up. Right. Here we are.
Yes. So I've just started here with my company tagline, which is making great places to live, work, and play. And that is really the essence of placemaking, to make sure that the places that we use every day, the places we occupy, are the best possible places they can be. Yeah, we can go on. I think I have my favorite definition of placemaking. Yeah? Yes. So placemaking is essentially building on the soul of a place. And why is this important? Because every place already has a story. And it is a matter of being able to capture that story, capture that history, capture that moment. It may not even be deep history. It may be a view. It may be the way the sunlight falls, but every place has something special about it. And what we want to do is honor that. And in honoring that, make the spaces that we live, work, and play that much better every day.
Excellent. Excellent. What is the soul of a place, though? What do you mean?
So, well, the soul of a place, you can go back to the previous one where we talk about this then. The soul of a place is all of the things about it. So you will recall in architecture school, we used to do a thing called site analysis. And it was kind of something we just did casually. You know, we'd like, this is where the sun comes, this is where the breeze is. And it's something we kind of did as a must do on the first sheet of every presentation. And well, let me not speak for others, let me speak for myself. But now that I am working and practicing, I realize how very important that analysis is and why it was such a core part of what we were taught and why it is a first step in those architecture projects when we learned those in terms of planning, in terms of architecture, because where the sun rises, where the sun hits your space, how the wind affects your location. What can you see from your location? What can see you? All of the senses, if you think of all of the senses, is it hot? Is it cold? Is it comfortable? Is it bright? All of those things help to define how you use a space. But then also when you look at the soul, you know, was this place something else in the past? The building in the back of this picture, for example, is the parish council office in St. Mary. But you can look at it and see that that building has stood for a couple of centuries, and I don't believe that's what it was centuries ago. And into the future, how do we honor what it was? How do we honor that even if a new building is built? Because this is just a little screenshot, a little shot of it, but there are new buildings built around. But how do you honor what was there before, and some of the stories, some of the history? Some of the history is not always good. Sometimes it's good and bad history, but how do you acknowledge this place? How do you acknowledge what has gone before, and how do you make space for what will come in the future?
Excellent. That's so true. Context is always important. Always important.
Yeah. So I think what I'll go into next is the kind of official definition of placemaking before we stray.
So for sure.
So
Next slide.
Yes.
Mm.
So there are, of course, people all over the world who really formally do placemaking, and placemaking is often officially considered as an activity around public space. And it is something I work on. I do work on public spaces and how public spaces are can make life anywhere better. Of course, life in the city, which is where most of us live, but how does that make spaces better? So the essence of what makes a great place is this great wheel here that's prepared by the team at the Project for Public Spaces. It's very detailed. It goes off into lots of things, and you can use it to analyze this space in great detail. I won't go into all of the detail, but just to touch on the 4 key areas, which is sociability, which is how do you engage, how do you, what can happen in a space, what kinds of different people are in a space. It's said that the more people in a space is the safer you feel. For example, lonely places don't necessarily feel safe, but it doesn't necessarily have to be crowded. It can be people who are well spaced. And so you could be alone, but still feel safe in a space. So the sociability of the space, and then having things to do in that space. How is the space used? What kind of activities are there in the space? And when we talk about activities, we need to think in making great places. What are the big highlights? What are the big events we're going to do here? What's an annual event? Is it a place where we'll have a Christmas event? Is it a place where we'll have carnival, like say at the Savannah in Trinidad?
Yeah.
But another important part of placemaking is what we call designing for Tuesday, because on a regular Tuesday morning, you want the place to still be, still move you, still be appealing, still reach out to you and make it a place that you want to visit again. So you want the highlights, but you also want it to be something that operates on a regular day. Then we talk about things like access and linkages. How do you get there? How do you get around? And again, this is very much related to making some place usable. Is, can I get there easily? And if I get there, can I get back home easily? How does it work? Is it near my office? Is it somewhere I can just pop out and have lunch there? So those are important things. And then comfort and image. What does it look like? And again, this goes back to what I said about all the senses. Do I feel safe? Do I feel safe? Do I like what I'm looking at? Do I get to enjoy trees? All of those things. Are there seats? Are there comfortable seats? Are there bins for my garbage? All those kinds of things are the little parts that come together to make a place. But I don't really want to tarry on the big technical stuff. I want to go further.
All right. What's the next slide? Move on.
Emma, you can go. This is an example of a public space that I had the pleasure of working on with my team at UDC. This is a place in Montego Bay, Jamaica that was called Dump Up Beach. In fact, many people, Bobby, I believe you're from Mobay originally, or near Mobay.
I'm from
many people
don't mix it up.
grew up calling this beach in Montego Bay Dump Up Beach.
Yes.
And obviously it has a slightly negative connotation. People used to go there, but it was also not safe. It was also not well maintained. And there were problems there. And with the UDC team, we worked on making this into a formal beach park, and it's now called Harmony Beach Park. And so I have a picture there of how it was laid out and how we opened it. I believe we opened it in 2021. It has been a raging success. But what I think is more important than showing you these formal spaces is my next slide.
But before we go to that, I want to ask, how does this work on a Tuesday?
Oh, Harmony Beach Park is great on a Tuesday. So it's actually designed, and kudos to the designers. They're architects, planners, and project managers, and the whole team at the UDC. So kudos to the design team. It's designed to take advantage of everything, to honor everything that's there. So how can we get sports and things? What's the longest route around so we can have a jogging trail? What about people who don't want to be on the beach? People who just want to sit in the shade? You know, how does that work? And I will tell you, on a Tuesday or even on a Sunday, a Saturday, my favorite place is not the beach, actually. It's under the trees, because we kept there were some large established trees on the site, and we kept them. And it is such a delight to sit under those trees. And there's a little bit of traffic passing on this side, and then there's a sea on the other side. And to me, that's my favorite spot. Of course, a lot of people like to go on the beach. But it goes to show you, and then I should say, big events are held there, big fireworks on New Year's Eve. The Montego Bay Christmas tree is held in the corner, at the corner of the two streets. So there are big events that happen there, but it's also a delight. So it has also been designed for a Tuesday.
Excellent. All right, next slide.
Yep. So the next slide is really showing you why I think it's a great place. So the bigger picture is showing you hundreds of people enjoying that beach. And there is no greater joy as a developer, as a designer, as a placemaker, than seeing people enjoy the place you've made. This means it's successful. Hundreds of people come, and they come every day, they come every week. That means something is right. That means this is a place people like, this is a place they want to come back to. So in my view, that's a huge success. But the smaller picture on the left is what I was talking about. There are these wonderful trees and lawn and grass, and not everybody has access to lawn and grass. So it is such a delight to also have that experience. You can sit quietly, and these two things could be going on at the same time. You could be reading your book peacefully on the grass while there are hundreds of people frolicking on the beach. And I think that's really an example of a great place.
Oh, it looks beautiful. Wow. So actually, let me go. I have a question about this. Oops. Where am I? Got lost.
Going around, yeah, there.
So it also breeds a feeling of safety. Just looking at this picture on the left here.
Yes, so safety was a part of that planning. So you will recall in the first wheel where I showed you the elements of what makes something feel like a good place. One of it is being clear what the boundaries are, feeling safe within the space. And so with this park, it has a clear boundary. It has ways that you can, even though I may be alone reading on the lawn, there are people around who can see me, you know? So if somebody was to come up to this lady, for example, there are others who would see. But I should also mention that there are other levels of security. There are cameras, there are actual security guards, but there's also the kind of crime.
We lose you? We lost me.
I think she's frozen.
Oh. Let me see if we can get her back on.
Yeah, she's back on.
Okay.
Did you lose me?
A little bit, but you're back.
Okay, I'm sorry. I have a power cut and I'm working with my mobile phone and my laptop.
You're doing great. All right, shall we move on to this slide?
Sure. This is more, I want to talk about placemaking as well, beyond just the looking at public space, because in the work that I do and in the work that you do, what we want to do is help people make the best possible spaces. And again, this harks back to my time in architecture school. And I did a course, it was in philosophies of architecture. And I learned about the poetics of space with Gaston Bachelard. And it sounds kind of poetic, but it is now to me so much realer as a part of how we design and how we make places great. And the Poetics of Space examines how your imagination fills a space with spirit and meaning, how something can mean something to you, and how then in return, the space evokes a feeling, a memory, a fantasy, and that makes it your space. It makes it special to you. And it made it special to hundreds, if not millions of other peoples, because we have seen too, where a special place can also have significant economic impact. So when we think about places all around the world that have become attractions, it's because it is a special place not to one person, but to millions of people. And there are people who go to these places, and each one of them, they gasp, they say, oh, wow, they take the pictures, and they want that memory, because there are places that really stay with you. And what I also want to do is not only do that at the, international monument level or at the public space level, but look at how you can do that in everything you do, in every space you occupy, in the spaces that you live, the spaces you work, and the spaces that you play. So this picture that I've added, sorry, go ahead.
Do you have any example of, have you lived any example of this idea?
What do you mean?
An example of this poetics in your own life?
Yes, and I believe that's the next slide, but I don't want to go on just yet.
Oh, okay.
I want to talk about this picture just quickly. This picture I really just found online, got it from Unsplash. But what stood out for me for this in this picture is just the way the sunlight comes through this window and shines through the plants, and it's just a moment. And whoever took this picture, obviously enjoyed the spot they were sitting and how the light comes through the space. And I want to show you how very simply placemaking can be, because this spot that this photographer was sitting in is a spot I would love to go and sit in. It may only be a fabulous place for 20 minutes of the day, but you can create your best 20 minutes of the day in your place, It could be that right after this 20 minutes, okay, work is over. After I enjoy the sunset, it is my way of wrapping up and saying, that's it for work today. I enjoyed the sunset in this spot and I'm done. And so those are some of the little cues that we get from the spaces around us, the places around us, and how we honor that. And we honor not necessarily what happens all the time, but even the moment of sunrise or sunset can be a space that you honor.
Yes.
And yes, I'm very happy now to talk about, I think it may be the next slide, about a space like that for me in my own home. Yes, so this is my king corner. It is on the landing of my stairs. What it is I have a staircase and it has a big window on the side, and I wanted to change that out. There was a closet there and I removed the closet because I just thought it was a clumsy spot for a closet. And I was left with this little niche, this little nook on my staircase. And I thought it looked a little odd, but I left it. And at first I did some plants, some vines up it. I was trying a thing. And then I thought more about it and I decided to make it a place. Well, actually during the pandemic, my dad died. And I wanted to make a little space in my house to honor him. And my dad's birthday is Epiphany, the Feast of the Three Wise Men, the Dia de los Reyes, the Day of the Three Kings.
Yeah.
And so I have three kings here, three little wooden kings carved by a Jamaican sculptor on a shelf. And I have a plant below it, a plant that actually does fairly well with low light because it doesn't get the best light right here. And it's just a little spot and it's a simple thing. But I want to say that it is a delight for me. Every time I go up and down my steps, if I have to pause, if I'm tired going up the steps, if I'm carrying things, if I wake up and I'm sleepy and I'm going down the steps, this little moment in my house gives me such delight. It gives me such delight. And then, so that's on a Tuesday, it gives me delight. But then because my dad's birthday was related to a specific celebration on the Feast of Epiphany, I put little lights there. And so I have a small little celebration in honor of my dad on that day. So it's really a simple corner of my house, but it is so important to me. And somebody else might say, oh, that's cute, or that's weird, but it's my space and I enjoy it so much.
Yes, so placemaking is not always about a large gesture, but it could be just a moment.
Indeed, indeed. And so what I touched on here, the three little points I have on the side are little simple things that I would like other people to think about in terms of placemaking. And that is first, what we used to do in architecture school, ponder what is special about this place in terms of all your senses. What do you see? What do you hear? You know, is there something you usually eat or associate with it? Is there a taste? Sometimes if it's somewhere near the sea, you can taste a little saltiness in the air too. So think of all your senses in this space and what is it about that you want to honor, you want to highlight, or like the example that I showed you before, put your chair where you can enjoy that little sunset, that 20 minutes of sunset. So that's one of the things. And the second thing is to name your place. So it doesn't have to be a formal name. It doesn't have to be a plaque. It doesn't need to be on the side of the building. It can just be in your head, or you can take it further if you want. But by thinking about how you name a place, that's also a way of honoring it. So like I said, I call this my Three Kings Corner. It could be anything. I also named my house for that same reason. And so there's another level of attachment to a place that you gather when you have named it, or when you are honoring its history by naming it, or when you're honoring its future by naming it. And then finally, again, to touch on what I said about designing for a Tuesday. So you want to think about how you'll experience it every single day, but then also what are some of the special things you can do in this space? What are some of the special occasions? It could be once a year, it could be once a month, it could be anything, but what about this space is where you will do something special to honor this space, this experience, this view. And I think this is probably a good place, Bobby, for us to talk about the lookout.
Yes, the lookout does have that quality of delight and memory. But I'm interested to hear what the lookout means to you as a Jamaican who lived there for a little bit and connected with it. What's your feelings around the lookout? The lookout is for those who don't know, is there's a beach called Maracas, and maybe halfway there's a little rest spot that kind of like, it reminds me of a much smaller Faith Pin with a better view. Heather, would you agree or no?
No, but anyway, so as a foreigner, when I first went to Trinidad, I remember the first time I went to Maracas, I stopped at the lookout.
Yeah.
And I love a view. So I was just wowed by the view. And again, it's a spot where all your senses come alive, because you're looking out at the horizon. The blue and green is so calming. And then there is a little taste of salt in the wind. There's also the taste of pepper in the chow, because I associate chow with that lookout. So, when I see a picture of lookout, I can almost taste chow because I'm seeing the picture,
Yes.
And the wind there, seeing the sun set there, just all of those things. And it's again a very simple public space. It was already nice. We put a bench and we allowed a chow vendor to be here. And all those things come together to make such a wonderful place. And I mean, I lived in Trinidad for a few years. I would stop there often. And then now that I've been away, like I said, even a photo of Maracas Lookout makes my mouth water for chow, because that is how much you become attached to a place. And I'm not saying that it was like my favorite place, but the place stayed with me, stayed in my mind, and all of my senses were touched by that place. And so that's to me is an example of somewhere that's been successful in achieving placemaking in a very simple way.
Yes. I want you to speak a little bit about delight, because you mentioned it a few moments ago, because that rings that same feeling of delight, brings that same feeling of delight to me. And what I realize is that in architecture or in designing a building or a space, oftentimes delight is the first thing that gets removed or value engineered. Right? How do we emphasize the value of delight in a stronger way, in your opinion?
Well, I think sometimes it's difficult with contractors and with building owners and project owners. It'd be difficult to say, here, I'm selling you delight. But what you can do is sell how the uniqueness or the special experiences in spaces can make a difference. And I'm going to give you an example that honors one of my architectural colleagues here in Jamaica. I'm a real estate agent, as I mentioned, and I took some commercial people, some bankers, to look at a property to rent a bank. And it wasn't, I mean, you don't really associate wonderful spaces with renting a bank space. And we went up, it's in a normal neighborhood, but in this particular building, when you reach the top floors, you have a view, and it's a lovely view. And the architect put in really big windows at the top where you can see the view. So on the lower levels, it's less exciting. But so I was walking through with these clients, and we came to the top floor. And I mean, I had been there before, but I opened the door and we walked into the space. And the space was, those states, how a space looks before you move in. And everybody turned to the view and went, wow. And I thought, yes, architect, you did your job, because that moment was what did it for them. And you could see like the CEO was like, yeah, this is either where I'm going to put my office or the meeting room so I can come here often. And those are sometimes and oftentimes the things that sell. When you watch your shows on HGTV and there's a moment when the client goes, ooh, or there's a moment when the client says, I really like that. I saw one once that said the moment when the client reaches for the phone to call their friend or something. That's when you know that you've really shown them something that has stayed with them and that they want to relate to. And it is delight. I think sometimes it's difficult to, my little light went out. Hang on a sec.
That's right.
I have backup lights. I hope you're still seeing me.
Yes.
Yes. So that's one of the ways that we look at delight in every way. Delight can be just a small thing that makes you smile each time you pass it, like me and this little corner in the house. But I'll tell you, I do this all over my house. So there are lots of places in my house. So my office, for example, is in my basement, which is not particularly exciting. But when I go up from my basement to my first floor, I have a little spot because I did a whole pretty thing by my front door as well. Of course, unfortunately, I rarely see it because I don't enter my house through my own front door. I come through the garage. But anyway, I put a little window by the front door. That means every time I go up and down the stairs from my office, I get to see the fountain and everything at the front door. Not a big expansive view, but just a glimpse of it. And I will tell you, every time I see it, it gives me a little smile. It gives me a little smile, and I'm like, I enjoy that, And then on other occasions when I'm having a dinner party and so when people come through my front door, they're like, oh, this is lovely, But honestly, every day I don't get to see it, but I get a little peek of it when I go up the stairs. And those are the things that make a huge difference for me in enjoying my space.
Beautifully put. Is that our last slide, or we have another one?
I think that may be the last slide. So I don't know if you want to do some questions or conversation.
Yes, I would love to open it up for some questions. I think the first one is placemaking seems to be more kind of geared around urban, right? And you've given us examples of how to bring it down to the individual. But how would an individual who's not kind of like design savvy or anything connect with those feelings, or try to look for those feelings? Like how would, this might be a difficult question, but how would we help someone to connect to those feelings?
Well, that was my little simple 3-step. You can go back to my simple 3-step, please. Just two, I think it's 2 back. Because I do want people to think what's a simple way to look at this? And then of course I would also say, get professional help. That's why people need architects, planners, and even placemakers to help them to bring that out. Because sometimes there's something you like, but you're not sure what it is. Or there's something you like, but you're not sure how to honor it, So you're not sure, how should I design this space to make this work. Again, I'm going to give you another example. I know an architect who was doing a house for a couple on a hill, but they were on the back end of the hill. So they were away from the view. And they were like, yeah, you know, we've always wanted to have a view, but this is the place we got. And in building up the house, they discovered there was a little spot in the primary bedroom that you could actually see a bit of the view. And so the architect changed to honor that space, you know, make a bigger window there, make a little day bed there, you know, a window seat there. And so that homeowner who had hoped to have a view of the city may not have a big expansive view, but they have a little spot where they get to enjoy it. And those are the things. It may not be something that you plan outright. It may be something that you discover while you're working on your project. And it's always good to have the right professionals helping you along there.
Excellent. I'll stop sharing for now. Any questions from the audience? We'd love to hear from you. Anything you'd like to add? Heather gave us an in-depth look into the feeling of what placemaking, you know, means. I think, like for us, with our focus on hillside living, we are spoilt with these moments because you have the views, you have the light, uninterrupted views, uninterrupted breeze. So that's why it's such a calling for most people. But I like the challenge of trying to do that, trying to create these same moments within like a dense neighborhood as well.
Yes.
And I mean, it's a challenge, but it's a welcome challenge. You know, for instance, I'll always look at courtyard typologies when you think about a dense kind of neighborhood space, you know?
When you can't get your own green space on the outside, you create a little one inside. Yeah.
Exactly. But do you find that in your real estate space, people tend to not want the work that comes with the delight?
So actually, it has been proven that making great places, one, increases your real estate value because you can create something that's the focal point, and then therefore the things around that become an attraction as well. So if you have an attraction, let's say the Eiffel Tower, let's say Emancipation Park in Jamaica, let's say the Savannah. I mean, one of the reasons, let's use the Savannah. One of the reasons the Magnificent Seven is particularly special is they're around this important public space. And so they individually came to honor being in that great location and then became an attraction themselves, you see? And then they being there increases the property value, again, to go back to the economic side and being the real estate person now. So that increases that property value. And it has been shown that the kinds of interest, visitor numbers, and the ability to say that you have a business on the Savannah, for example. So a restaurant that's able to have a deck to the Savannah, or a restaurant that's able to have a deck to, say, Emancipation Park, or a jerk center that's able to have a deck that's to Harmony Beach Park in Montego Bay. All of that is an increased value add that's not based on your own property, but being adjacent to something special. And then that encourages you to be special as well. And so even when we get away from the deep feeling and stuff, and we get into the economics of it and balancing the profit part, it's also has been shown to really drive values.
Well, that's a good argument for the light.
But you have to show that the light has economic value.
Exactly.
Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to add to the discussion.
Hi.
Hi, good afternoon. So my name is Mai Marie, and I find this webinar extremely interesting for me because I don't deal with the macro level of real estate and engineering architecture, but I'm a home organizer. So I relate to a lot of what you say, Heather, about the value that a space has when you refinish it or you reorganize it or you present it as something different. So for me, I deal with spaces that are cluttered. A lot of the times we get caught up in our day-to-day. So we go and go and go, and we have work, we have kids, we have things to say about, and we don't stop to say, okay, my space isn't in order. And with that comes, you get more stressed out. You're not as productive in your space. And so coming in and kind of decluttering spaces, clearing things out, and giving people a system where they could organize their things that they could maintain. And that's most importantly, something that's tailored to their routines and how they kind of live their lifestyle, help them to feel more efficient in your space. And I talk all the time about how your space informs your well-being. And
100%. You're right.
exactly. And a clean space equals a clear mind. So I really resonate with a lot of what you guys are seeing today.
Excellent.
Thank you.
You're a space
And-
organizer?
Yes.
Yes, I'm a home and office organizer.
Oh, wow.
So you can move away the clutter and honor that important
Honor
part
that
of the
space,
space.
exactly.
So important.
Exactly. And feel refreshed at the end of the day too.
And people like
And I just
you
want to
help
say-
people. Sorry.
Go ahead, Bobby.
I said people like you help others to understand that those special
Their own
places and
space.
special moments. Yeah. Yeah. Well
Yeah, and
done.
just, to take power of your space. I think in the Caribbean, where I go, like my mother can't hear me say this, but in the Caribbean, we are so geared towards a clutter culture that we don't realize how it affects us over time. And we, I think coming back to, I'm not here to promote ultimate minimalism, but just coming back to having things that work for you and that are functional for you, it goes a long way.
Maya.
Someone's
Someone wants to
asking where
find
you're
you.
based.
Oh, I'm based in Trinidad.
All right. Well, if you want to put your contacts in the chat, we'd love to
Follow up
have
with
you
you.
as have you as a resource. I might need some
Yes,
organizing for sure.
I will, no problem. Thank you guys.
Yes.
I want to say too that placemaking is applicable at work. I know we've been talking about home and like public spaces, but what happens at work also affects how you feel about the work, how productive you are, and work is the place where we spend a large part of our day, so how much light we get. For example, as I told you, my home office is it was essentially my basement, but it has huge windows. So I get lots of light in here, and that's very important to me. And it's an important part of me being able to put in the time and do work. And this applies not only to home offices, but to big offices as well. How do you expect people to be productive if they're in unpleasant spaces? You want people to be in spaces where they can work and to have relief spaces that can be special, so that there's a place where you can go, just for a moment and enjoy a small park outside or a spot in the office where you get a fabulous view. And so you put some chairs there so people can sit. Those kinds of things make a difference in your overall ability to be productive and to focus and to do all of that. So it's a key part of work, play, and live.
Excellent. Any other questions from the audience? No? Camille's right. Sometimes it's hard to see past the clutter to kind of focus on anything. But that's why, you have people like Maya that you could actually, get in to help you. Because, I can speak from my own experience. I just want to put something in a closet and not see it anymore. You know what I mean? Any other questions?
If we talk about clutter and cleaning up as well, we look at like Marie Kondo's recommendation. She says, only keep what sparks joy, and that sparking joy is your same delight again, Bobby. And Maya's right. We have a tendency to acquire and accumulate, particularly in the Caribbean. Anything you may have a use for it in the future. So we keep things, and they're not necessarily giving you any joy, but just lots of things. And it is an important part of freeing up your mind, freeing your space. And when I look back at that example of that closet on my staircase, it was a closet full of things, and now I've lost that storage. I have storage elsewhere, but now I've lost that storage. And there were people who were like, "Oh, why would you give up storage?" But I've given it up for a little spot that gives me great delight every day. And I think that's a little more important than keeping, extra sweaters
that you won't look
in a
at.
closet. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions, comments? If we don't have any, we'll have a final word from Heather.
Oh, my final word is just, could you put up back my slide again? It was the second to last slide,
No problem.
which is just that we want to honor the space. That's it. Next one, the one after that, I think.
Is it all?
Yep.
This one?
No, the one with the one I started with here.
This
One, building on the soul of a place. So I just want to end by reminding everyone that everywhere, your house, your office, wherever you play, everything has a story and has an opportunity for delight, to use Bobby's language. And we can help you. People like Bobby, people like me can help you, and you'd be amazed at the added value from acknowledging this thing that may seem to be, only cerebral, but acknowledging this makes a big difference in the quality of the space, and as I said, even into its real estate value.
Mhm. So, and that will be more palatable to a lot of, developers.
Yeah, man, it has economic value for sure.
All right. Well, Heather, thank you for a lovely chat. This was very interesting. And I want to invite everybody to our next webinar. Not sure what we're talking about yet, but we're gonna be doing something. And Heather, how can we reach you? Anybody else have any other questions? Can we reach?
I can be found and followed up and engaged with. I'm very much on social media. I'm at Heather Pinnock almost everywhere. I use LinkedIn heavily, Twitter and Instagram. So feel free to connect there. We
Excellent.
can chat, we can do some work together too.
Excellent. All right, guys. Thank you
Thanks so
much.
much.
For coming. Thank you again, Heather. And hopefully JP starts out soon.
It's raining, so they may not fix it till it stops.
Oh no. All right.
Thanks.
Bye. Have a good evening.
Bye.